This is the Tapped In Podcast, the podcast for beverage distributors that want to empower their sales team to drive business results. Listen up and welcome back to another episode of the Tapped In Sales Podcast, your podcast for beer distributors by beer distributors. I'm one of your many hosts, Bud, here and with Magic Mike out in the woods, Mike, and then also Remy Ross. Ross went to Disney in Paris yesterday, and he got a new family friend, Ross.
That's right. Got to keep us honest here.
You got to keep us honest. We got to keep the shareholders of Disney happy with their 20-euro Remy as well. I bet you the GP is pretty high on that, don't you think?
This piece of China stuffing? Yeah, sure. It's like 99% margin.
Do you think there's very many tariffs on the Parisian Remy in France from the China importation?
I'm sure.
Probably not.
Hey, there's enough margin room there for as many, 99% tariff.
99% tariff.
Still be profitable.
Oh, I love it. Mike, you're in the woods again?
Is Remy the fourth member of this pod now?
He could be. I'm still holding on. I'm still thinking you need to grab a raccoon out there.
I could probably find one pretty quick.
You could find one and a big fat squirrel. Well, they're probably leaner up there. They probably work really hard up there.
Yeah, I will say that
the right next to me, so
the pigeons at Disney were the fattest I've ever seen. They were doing well.
They were doing well. I love it.
It's been on the menu a few times. It's been on the menu a few times here in Paris. I ate pigeon the other night.
Pigeon on the menu?
Oh yeah, I've eaten pigeon twice since I've been here.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Did you have it? Did you try it?
Yeah, it's good. I've had it before.
Oh really? Yeah, I don't think I could try that.
My poor wife. She's like, I was like, you would have liked it had you not known what it was.
Yeah. That's my thing. I can't get past the mental.
It's almost like a red meat. Anyway, it's not bad.
Mike's taste buds are not as adventurous as ours, Ross. When we do on-sites with everybody, like Ross and I like to take Mike to very interesting places to go to eat. Mike is usually like, I just need a fried food and burger, bro.
Yeah, man. Let's keep it simple.
Where did we take him that he was terrified? Was it ramen or was it
ramen?
Pho? It was ramen. Yeah.
Was it the first ramen or was it? Did we go to like a Thai place or something too?
Yeah, I think that and the Indian place I think terrified you too.
Yeah, that scared the shit out of me. And I was like, can we go anywhere but there, please?
Well, you need to get the pigeon, man. It's good.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I would try it. I don't know. To me, they come off as like garbage birds.
They're winged rats.
Winged rats. I'm like, how good? Like, what am I ingesting here?
Nobody's ever seen a baby pigeon. That's the only problem I have.
Oh, got to go to the conspiracy route, man. Are they? They're all drones, right?
Yeah,
exactly.
I guarantee there was no circuit. There was no circuits in this pigeon I ate.
Yeah. There's not a lot of transparency where your pigeons come from, Ross. And there may not be a lot of transparency in how your reps are being paid or where they're making money. And that is what we are here to talk about today in one of the ultimate segues I've done yet on this podcast.
Straight from eating pigeons into this topic. I like it. It's a great
exactly.
segue.
Yes. So today's topic we're going to talk about is pay transparency. Is it motivation? Is it mayhem? It gives people lots of heebie-jeebies. One of the things that we really believe in at VXP and what we do professionally is being transparent about pay and what that means. Now, a lot of people are going to hear this to start with. They're going to say, well, of course, Bud, we are transparent in how we pay our reps. I would counter that and would have you go ask your reps if they actually understand how they get paid and have them tell you. You will get some interesting responses back if you do try that experiment. People will say things that you are unaware of how they think they get paid and how they actually get paid. So transparency and how somebody gets paid is one thing, but we're going to actually focus more on actually sharing the outcomes and sharing what rep A is making versus rep B or rep C or rep D, and some of the power of that. So let's start with a question here, Mike, because you watched this firsthand. When we did this at Atlas and when we do this professionally with clients, what do you notice is like the first stepping off point for a rep when they're like, holy crap, I'm going to see what others make and others are going to see what I make?
Yeah, it's probably a little scary for most. And, I think even just launching new clients and being out on the road and hanging out with them and their first, take on being able to see everybody else's pay. And it's like, at first it's scary, right? I mean, it's like a little bit of intimidation. It's like, I don't want other people to see what I make. And, my mind goes to one on site that I was on, and an older gentleman. He's a seasoned veteran, we should say, right? He's been in the beer business for a long time, and the very first thing out of his mouth was, "I've been in a lot of roles. I've worked at many places, and I've been here for a long time, and I've never ever heard of anybody showing everybody's pay. And I can see it right here in this app." And he held up his phone. "I can see it right here in this application what everybody's making." And that was his biggest hurdle to get over. And 30, 40 minutes into the conversation, he changed his mind, because we talked about it. Obviously base is different. All right, now you're at risk. If you've been there for longer, your base is going to be a little bit higher. Or even if you don't have all of your at risk lined up and everybody's a little bit different, you need to know the structure. And I think that, to go back to your initial question, is when at Atlas, when we switched over and made it very transparent to our reps, and they were not the same. Their at-risk dollars were not the same. But what we did was we made sure that we were very transparent on the structure. Why? Where are these dollars coming from? Why are they not the same? How are they structured, right? And I think that's super important to know that it was, and for our case, it was based on seniority, years of service, how long they've been there, right? And we moved some different buckets. Also, maybe a little bit of control too, right? On premise versus off premise versus chain. There's going to be some different control factors, and what you can actually do out in the market. So I think that'll change. But yeah, I mean, it's at first it's a total fear, and I don't want people to see what I make. Then it turns into very quickly, okay, well, if so and so is making that, I want to make that. And I sure as heck don't want to be at the bottom where the other rep may be. So a lot of parts to unpack there. But overall, I mean, it's definitely an eye-opening experience for the reps to be able to see that and put transparency up on the board. But I think it's super important to make sure that they know where those dollars come from, what makes it up.
I think we're going to delve into the strategic elements of what makes it beneficial, the pros of the transparency. But I think it's important to jump in from what you said, Mike, and discuss the counter, which is, if you're not transparent about it, what you're leaving open is for people to make assumptions about it. And yes, I would argue that that's dangerous. You may think that, well, your reps aren't making assumptions about it if you don't explain it to them or show them. But I'm going to tell you right now, they do. And what they think is real could be far more dangerous than what is real.
And when they when they fill the void with their own stories, a couple things happen. Either money shows up on their paycheck and they don't really know how it got there, and they don't understand why it got there. And if they don't understand, they can't repeat it. Magic is a one-time trick. Science is something that's predictable and repeatable that you can do over and over again. And that's one of the benefits of being transparent about this stuff, is that you show people the why and you show people the transparency, and then they can actually recreate the magic over and over again through science, because they understand, if I do this, this is going to happen in return as well. And you're 100% right, Ross, that like if they don't understand it, they're just going to fill the void with their own version or their own conspiracy theory, their own pigeon story around where baby pigeons come from. And that can turn into a whole host of problems as well, and really be challenging culturally too, and be disengaging on the culture side.
Yeah, we see it happen all the time when we sign new clients and they're exposing GP per CE and GP for the very first time.
Yeah.
There's some hesitancy there of, I don't want to expose those numbers. Well, guess what? Your reps are already thinking they know those numbers. and they're probably not right. They're probably a lot higher than what they really are. So by exposing that really brings them down to reality. Same thing here where, maybe Joey on Route B, I feel like he makes way more than I do because he does this and this and that. And, he just has a higher pay. So opening that up and exposing that goes a long way. But, and the truth is you don't need equal pay. You need fair pay. And the reps need to understand the why behind those numbers, which is going to explain why there's discrepancies. And it could drive motivation too, right? Maybe one route pays higher just because the way that it's structured. Well, now you have a rep that's motivated to work the way up and get that route one day or move to that route. And how are they going to do that? They're going to prove themselves to be able to get there as well.
Yeah, I mean, we're straying a little bit towards a different subject, but it's important, I think, to reiterate it, which is it's better to explain what it is, what's happening in terms of, for example, gross profit. Because I know where you're straying there, Mike, is, people are scared to have the transparency and conversation around what is gross profit and show it. But if you don't show it, again, you're going to be surprised about what people's assumptions are around what the profitability of the business is and how the company makes money. The assumption is that revenue number, for example, that they see on their handhelds is what the company makes. And that's a silly assumption, right? Well, is it a silly assumption? Because it's a dollar amount and they see it and the company makes it. So you're much better off having the conversation of saying, okay, this is what we buy it for. Then we've got all the costs of the business. This is what we sell it for. And this is the pennies that are left over after the fact. And it's more important to have that conversation than allow the assumption that, hey, the revenue number is what the boss is taking home. Because that couldn't be further from the truth. Now, we can argue all day that gross profit is a terrible name, right? Because profit has a negative connotation these days. We should probably call it something like net revenue. Revenue net of our cost to purchase the product. Then we have all the rest of the cost of the company to get to actual profit. Again, because we need to explain it. And our education system in the United States has done a really, really piss poor job of teaching people the financial side of things. Whether that's, again, conspiracy, right? Maybe they don't want our citizens to know about finances. But at the end of the day, I think it's important to go through those steps in the exercise of explaining how the company makes money and where everybody's role in, whether that be cost control, revenue driving, comes together, and how our suppliers and what they cost us in terms of their margins, to at least have that conversation so people understand where they're placed in the financial structure of the businesses.
The other reason why we don't call it net revenue is because the name wouldn't work. Having a R minus C as the brand name of the company versus VXP, R minus C is no fun.
No.
That doesn't work either.
Screwed up our whole branding.
Screwed up our whole branding. So back to that transparency part around pay. So Ross, inspiration for you as the trailblazer that started this whole show. Why did you want to make this a feature and a process to expose the reps to everybody's variable pay at the same time? What was the jumping off point for you when you started doing this?
I mean, I think you and I talk all the time about, treating people like people. And if you're going to have humans working for you, treat them like humans. And part of that is, again, giving them exposure to what it is that they're doing in the business from a financial perspective, right? Because, again, they're going to make assumptions if you don't. And I feel that giving people that entrepreneurial control over their route from a financial perspective, from an action perspective, and tying that back together and giving them, stake in the outcomes as part of that whole idea of treating people like people. And good people will thrive in that culture. Bad people may not, but that's who you want. You want the entrepreneurial go-getters, people that are self-motivated. And I feel like that aligns, and I think the data has backed it up, that aligns with that. But I think also we need to realize that this generation coming up behind, behind the boomers and even my generation, they're much more, things are faster, right? And what I mean by that is things are starting to become, and this is a terrible term, but more gamified. And they're used to seeing these things and these things to be moving quickly. And having the score, because quite frankly, the output payout and the amount of profitability being generated on a daily basis and the transparency, it's kind of like a score. They're used to things being faster, transparent, and move quickly. And to some degree, both the outputs in terms of profitability volume are essentially a score, and then also how much money they're earning is a score. And then we have the rankings inside our system, and it's all real time moving. And I think it lends itself better to this generation who is used to that level of transparency, used to that level of feedback, and used to seeing it in a format that's mobile friendly, tech native friendly. So you're really catering to that generation that's coming up behind, um, X and Boomer, who didn't grow up with that level of transparency and that and really catering to that generation that's coming up, which is taking over the sales force right now. So you need to be sensitive to what the sales force is becoming, not what it was necessarily. I still think it's good for us millennials and X and boomers too, but it's not something we expect, right? But it is something this generation expects. Constant feedback, constant reinforcement, constant visibility.
And what was interesting too, Mike, is that we've actually had reps tell us, like, I'm thinking about Sam right now, and he word for word said, I love this because it's fair. And he is right in that wheelhouse of that age group and that age cohort that you're talking about.
It's really fair and it's really balanced. Distributors, all competitive. You get paid 1% of the invoice, but if you really think about it, yeah, that's great if you have a high volume account and you do a lot of volume, but it's not so great if you have a lower volume account and it doesn't. Though one person will get more and one person will get less, just if it's a flat percentage rate. Well, that's kind of really unfair because you could be selling low gross profit things and still get the full commission, even though every case is different. With this, it's more how much each case makes a company. So it's very balanced because you're going against the goal. Everyone has a different goal number when you're going against yourself. It's actually it's really fair and it's really balanced.
I'm convinced that every younger generation has actually just been able to be more vocal about their opinions. The older generations actually feel the same way. They just bottled up. The traditionalists and the boomers just actually bottled up what they actually said and said, no, what? We're just not going to talk about our feelings and we're just going to go with what the boss man says and move on. But the millennials and the Gen Yers are more open to saying, hey, I don't like this, or this is what I do like, and push back. And it's just more of a liberalization of their ability to actually communicate what they feel in the workplace versus what boomers had. That's Bud's own little opinion.
Well, and it's also harder from a cultural perspective to identify with your company. That ship has sailed. I mean, it's I say it's sailed, but you should try to foster a culture like that. But it's harder for them to identify with the company as from a long-term perspective. It's just not part of the culture anymore, both from a business to an employee perspective and employees back to business. So being transparent about the rules and then giving them the room to run their business within the business is going to lead to the best outcomes. They're not necessarily there for the gold watch anymore.
Yeah. Well, and when Sam said fairness, he specifically was like, everybody has the same starting point. They got different goals, but all the routes are created differently. But if I do well versus my goal on a percentage basis, I'll be compared to my peers equally. And if that's my route that I need to run, and if my route's targets are 100,000 cases for a month or 50,000 cases for a month or 20,000 cases for a month, whatever it is, that's my responsibility to do as much and as best as I can. And these are the resources and the dollar value and the transparent pay that I get paid to do it. So when you talk about fairness, Mike, when you were thinking about it through the context of working with reps and rolling what we do out professionally in VXP, anything that comes to mind on like what gets people excited about or what annoys people or where they really like the move to being this transparent?
Yeah, it's funny you asked that too, because I popped in my head. I've had a couple reps, and lately I think it was the last onsite that I was on, or maybe it was two ago. The reps were so excited about the transparency in pay, not only because they could see and track all of their pay in one place, but they're competitive. They want to see what the others are making as well, right? And I had one rep pull me aside after the meeting and just said, "Hey, would you be able to connect via Zoom like in the next week or two? Because I would love to know everything I can about this program because I want to be on top of that leaderboard every single month." And that's what drove that rep, to be on top of that leaderboard,
Yeah.
and digging in to get as much knowledge, as much training as possible to ultimately be good at his job, to be on top of that leaderboard. And I've seen that happen a couple times, and people have reached out and they're like, "This is great. I'm going to kick ass, right? I am going to just dominate." First thing I was in first last month and he snuck in, and then I was in second, and that's not going to happen this month. I'm kicking everybody's butt. So it's just fun to see. And then in the same part too, I've had reps come up and ask, "Why is so and so making so much more money than I am? What's going on there? Why? That's not fair." Well, in fairness, you guys have the equal opportunity to make the same amount. You guys both have the same opportunity to make. Let's go ask X whatever rep A is, and see what happened this month, or what's going on in the last 3 months. Why are you making so much more money? Why are you dominating? And you might learn something, right? And it could be a total execution. It could be you failed to see an opportunity, the other rep did, but ultimately it's a learning part too, to
I think
take that knowledge.
I think the key thing you said there is it's a quality of opportunity, not a quality of outcome. And
Correct.
we need to make sure that everybody realizes the rules of the game, so that everybody has equal opportunity to exceed their goals and make additional money. That's important, that the playing field's level from an opportunity perspective.
Yeah, and it does exactly what it's designed to do: create a little bit of competition. When we all see what others are making, we have that transparency. We know how and where the dollars are coming from, and the opportunities there. Now I want to be competitive by nature, to dominate and take all of those dollars and put them in my paycheck.
One of the things I get lots of questions about is how do we drive adoption? And this level of transparency to me is always something that is going to drive adoption. So when people are changing pay plans or compensation structures or anything else, when they're not transparent, you don't really know who's winning or who's not. And it doesn't drive any new or net different behaviors. When you are this level of transparency, you can see who's at the top and who's at the bottom, and you have the resource counter in dollars in our world is actually exposed to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Now you have underperformers reaching out to top performers, skipping the middle management tier entirely, and asking their peers, what are you doing that I'm not, and how are you meeting and exceeding your goals that I'm not? Because Mama Bear or the family wants to go to Disney and they want their own Remy on their shoulder. And if I'm falling behind by $200 or $300 or $400 on a regular basis, after a few months, like that adds up. And I'd like to get my hands on those dollars because I have the same opportunity and I have this exact same outcomes. Why am I not winning, or why am I not doing what I need to do? And how can you as a peer help me? And if it's all hidden and it's not transparent and we don't talk about it, none of that magic happens. And that magic is going to drive adoption.
Yeah, I think we're obviously talking through the lens of our own book, but even if somebody's listening that's never becomes a client, I think all of us believe strongly in this idea that you should be transparent, and that's something you can implement quickly without us.
Yep.
And I don't want to make this about us. This is I think really good advice through the perspective of what we've seen across a lot of people and a lot of positive outcomes. So it's an easy layup to be transparent, timely, and those pieces. So again, I don't want us to come off as through the frame of what we're doing. It's good advice, I think.
Now, there are still things we want to manage that are not transparent. And we're not here advising everybody to be full kimono and open up all of everybody's P&L and their personal payroll statements to everybody. Things that we still see that are not transparent or behind the paywall would be your base. The bases could be set up off of longevity, off of skill set, off of time with, longevity and tenure with the company are one and the same. Those are all things that we see. How much healthcare or benefits you're taking as well would be all things that would be off books or off platform, where that's all hidden behind the paywall too. But when you do that, that's okay to talk about that transparency of like, we're going to create the same opportunity outcome, XYZ dollars for everybody. And we're going to take care of our longevity folks with extra base or the top performers with extra base. And that's how you create the differential outcomes across the network of people. And it treat people fairly in some ways by treating them differently in this kind of a lens as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think on the far extreme, you've got somebody like Ray Dalio who says you should engage in radical transparency.
Mm-hmm.
I think what we tend to advocate towards is transparency to what is controllable. To the, why expose things that have nothing you can do about it? We talked about 2 calls ago, like paying people in EBITDA. As a sales rep, what control do you have over fuel cost? 0. So why am I going to sit down and say, hey, this month our fuel costs were 20% more than we expected, so I'm going to take money off the table for your compensation?
Yeah.
I mean, why even waste time talking about it? It has no basis of control.
I can't affect the outcome. If I can't affect the outcome, I succumb to the outcome. Nothing going on. One of the big questions we do talk, and this is for anybody listening who's going through implementation, if we send this to you, is should dollars be equally available in variable pay across multiple reps, or should they be different? And this is one of many conversations or arguments that Ross and I have in front of clients when we're talking with each other. And it's very fun, and it's something that we have 2 different opinions. I often lose. Ross often wins.
I think my win score is higher than your win score on this one.
In this one, much higher. And so the question asked is, to reframe it is, okay, I've got XYZ number of dollars to contribute in variable pay.
Yep.
Routes aren't created equally. Should I pay people different bonuses and be transparent about it based on the size and scale of the route? Or should I create the same equal opportunity? The example in dollars is, should everybody have $1,000 in variable pay across all my reps, regardless of size? Yeah. Or should my larger reps that manage a larger business have $1,200, and the smaller reps that manage a smaller part of the business have $800, and have different between each other?
And again, you and Mike are biased because you both came from the Atlas side, and you both were, and you were both mistaken in this.
So Ross, what do you think? Like, walk through your side of the argument here.
I've always liked having at least equal variable by segment type, versus having everybody different. Because that way, as you start to exceed your goals, it's proportional to everybody. So that score that you see your peers at is equivalent. I think any difference between compensation should be handled in base. Again, I would argue that you need to stratify. Here's where I'm also going to say this. I would argue that you need to segment your routes, or types of routes, by seniority, not by seniority, but by skill. So those accounts that you have more control or variable or ability to impact the outcome, specifically I'm thinking independence on the off-premise and on-premise, you want to gravitate your best salesman that direction. Entry level in my mind is more things where it's closer to order taking or lower impact. That's a great place for lower entry individuals to move in. That's how I segmented my company. I know you did it differently. But I feel strongly in those things, and most of our clients have tended to agree with me. Which I'm glad you're willing to admit that.
Oh, I lose this argument all the time.
but by all means, make the argument.
So the way that we did it at Atlas was we wanted a hard, clean 70-30 split between the, or 75-25 when we started. And because we were moving from all commission, 100% commission, and like 95%, maybe like 5% basis, like $100 a month or something like that. It was nothing. So basically everything was variable through a commission model or a pay for performance PFP model. And we just chose to say, hey, if we're going to move this direction, we're going to make everything equal in a 75-25 split, 75 base, 25 at risk. And the numbers are whatever the numbers are. And they were not vastly different. I think they were about what, Mikey, maybe like $200 a month different.
Somewhere a little bit more than that. But okay. Yeah, I mean, nothing crazy.
But it was something that was a hurdle that we didn't know at the time that we had to get past, at least in explaining it. And we chose to explain it through the lens of, hey, Kenny, you run a smaller route, and that's why your XYZ dollars are this. JV, you run a larger route, that's why your dollars are XYZ this. So we had to be more HR or human resource kind of explanationist and why we did what we did versus what Ross's recommendation is, which is keep everybody the same.
And it tends to become necessary at scale because you had the relationship with each of your individual sales reps because you were a smaller family-run business. As you get up towards where I was, like closer to 50 reps, I feel like you need to be a little bit more standardized with this.
Correct.
Because you can't handhold your way through 50 different people.
You have drugged me farther and farther to your side of the coin, and we do advise more and more. I often provide the counter argument just to provide it as a point of reference and what people can consider and think about doing. But it's an option. Now, a couple of strategic things with transparency that we have seen people do is, and if this fits your fancy as a listener, a couple of clients have made strategic decisions to change the way they're doing this because they have not gotten a entry level rep to want to be promoted to that larger, more complex, more important route. When you see things like that, that might be a strategic opportunity to provide a little added transparency to, hey, base is larger and you get additional variable dollars for being willing to take on this larger, more complex route.
Yeah.
So those are things you can do. And to Ross's point, using your segmentation around maybe chain, small format, chain, large format versus independent on and off, that might be a dial that you can play with at your wholesaler around what quotient of dollars or quantity of dollars do I want available depending on the stratification of the routes or the channels of routes.
And it's a whole nother subject, but I highly recommend that in addition to BUD or ABCD stratification of your volume of your accounts, that you're also doing the same thing in terms of your ability to have impact in that account. Mm-hmm. I think you're looking at size relative to impact. I think you need to the lens at which you route through, especially if you're in a denser routing territory, you really need to be thinking about the impact, not just the size.
I think that's a great point, Ross. And I think about an account that we had, Horrocks, Bud, right? They don't sell a whole lot of volume. Their volume, it was very, very small, but it was a very impactful account, very influential, meaning they had 50 taps, something like that, 50 or 60 taps. It was a farm market, but very popular. People would drive in for 45 minutes to an hour to come there, check it all out. Very, very cool. But then they would also sample the beers, right? They'd be like, they'd sit down at the bar because you can grab a pint and then go shop the farm market. Mm-hmm. It was a beautiful thing. That account alone took at least 4 hours a week of a rep's time, 2 hours on order day, 2 hours when the order came, because they wanted you there to actually put everything where it went, make sure your sections and everything looks great. But that was a very, very impactful account that took a lot of selling, but it would never have showed up in our B or U list. You know what I mean? So I think to your point, yeah, how much impact do you have in that account? How important is that account as well? And somebody should be getting paid more for taking care of that account.
100%.
And we did follow that process over time, Mike, where we moved to more of an impact and the
Right.
attitude of sales professionals in the independent channel or in the independent and off and on premise channel. We were very geographically we're central or kind of geographically rooted as well. And then we deployed Dave in a super merchandiser kind of a context that they
That's
took
right.
care of more of the, hey, these are chain centric. There's not as much as you can do. You can do more than nothing, but less than an independent.
Yep.
And you've got to find somebody in that middle ground as well. One of my favorite jokes I tell people when I'm talking on demos now is that everybody, like inevitably a president or a CEO will say, what about a chain market, bud? Like how impactful can a chain market can be? And I always tell them, you don't let your reps give you that line of bullshit too, do you?
That's great advice because
And they all laugh because we've all heard that you know, I can't do anything here, when in reality you can just do less than an independent, but you can do more than nothing.
And typically those accounts have more foot traffic, higher volume. So the little things that you're doing in there might not seem that big and impactful, but overall in grand picture, they are. I hear from reps all the time, like, oh, you know, I'm chain account. I have no control. I have no impact. And we get to like the first account. I'm like, all right, so you're locked into a planogram. They're like, well, there's some flexibility in it. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, all of your displays are mandated. Well, there's some flex space. I'm like, you have all the control in the world. What do you mean you have no control?
All the
Let's kid
influence.
it.
All the influence you need.
Yeah.
Ross, what have we not touched on around this topic? Because I know this is something that you and I care a ton about that we also need to touch on.
I mean, I feel like there's a couple different directions we can go from here, but I mean, maybe we're getting to the place where this topic is kind of wrapped up, unless there's a direction that you kind of wanted to go.
I don't have anything else on my mind. Just, you know, the big takeaway for anybody listening today is like how powerful transparency can be by answering questions and giving people rules of the road. They're not filling the void without you. They're understanding and they're moving forward, and they know that if I do XYZ, I get ABC, and that's ultimately what we're trying to do. And you know, talking about this a handful of times, but like if we're gonna choose to allocate resources, and there are limited resources at a company that just are, it's not infinite money, it's not a money tree hanging around. We need to make sure that we're getting as much value out of those resources as we can, and much effort and incremental effort as we can. And every time we see people be more transparent about how they do things, better, bigger results come at the end of it. And we do this professionally. I want to see people do it more. This is one of a passion of ours. We do professionally. That's why we want to talk about this today as well, too. So pivoting to a couple news stories is we're got some data nationally around energy drinks continuing to surge, beer struggles. We all know that beer is struggling across the board. Like clients are seeing, we see this day in and day out. But Mike and Ross, as you guys are working with clients and doing goal setting, week in or month in and month out, are you starting to talk to clients more and more about their non-beer soda and energy drink segments more and more? Are they focused, like, is there other anecdotal data behind this that we're seeing here too?
I feel like it's a reminder, and I feel like it doesn't have the attention, it being in a outside of beer category, right? I feel like it doesn't have the attention that it should. And when we're talking about volume numbers and GP numbers, and you know, we always have to pivot back around to what is NA doing. NA beer could be in that segment too, but NA energy drinks, and it's doing a lot for us. You know, some of the rising stars are still in the beer distributors network. You know, some of the brands that we're seeing up and coming. Alani Nu, you posted here, it's up 6.8% share. I mean, that stuff is really grabbing, and it's growing pretty fast. And a lot of places a lot of distributors that lost Ghost are making up some of that loss. They're closing the gap pretty quickly with Alani and some other energy drinks. But I mean, to your point, if you're not watching the energy or NA trends, you're missing half the market picture. You really are, because as beer is declining, the NA side is growing, and there's some good players out there that are grabbing some of that growth.
Mm-hmm. Ross, anything on your end?
No, I mean, there's more and more conversation around the THC and making sure that's properly focused on. And I think you and Mike, you've had podcasts specifically around THC, but it continues to be a conversation how it's handled.
Yeah. One of the things that we're doing in the very near future is on July 24th. So the week this comes out, later in the week, I'm going to be helping Harry from Beer Business Daily host the Distributor Productivity Summit. And this is an agenda. We've got bridging the gap around institutional knowledge transfer and succession planning, evolving M&A the evolving M&A landscape, crossroads of change with the Rare Pacific crew, from chaos to clarity with 99 bottles, sales execution. We've got a couple clients talking with us around what they've been changing up in terms of sales execution, warehouse robotics. We're getting into the robots, online ordering. But this topic really comes into beyond beverage. What else should beer distributors be selling? And how we're seeing other clients get outside of just beverage. And I wanted to bring this topic up today because when energy drinks surge or beer struggles, like we have a valuable route to market, and how we're leveraging our route to market as a wholesaler is what's really important to us, and how we can get that done, because we can win as a wholesaler, as a distributor, regardless of what any individual brand does or what any individual product category does. So this will be a fun topic. We've got the sales manager, wholesale distribution for the Tajin crew. So these are the people who make Tajin, the Mexi Link. And then Adam Farmer, the CEO of the Farmers Company, they make a bunch of branded popcorn. They have that Guinness, or is it Guinness pretzels, right, Mike? Yeah, that's Guinness what it is.
Pretzels? Is it?
Yeah.
I don't know.
They do popcorn and they do a Guinness pretzel. Those are two of the things that I know they do. I'm sure they'll have a couple other things that they're talking about day of as well too. So that was something I wanted to bring up and kind of pitch anybody who's listening who wants to listen to more and hear some of those more topics. And then also specifically
that's
around
a live webinar, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's a live webinar. So how do people get the link for that? How do you sign up for that?
You go to Beer Business Daily and go to Distributor Productivity Summit, and you're able to register there. It's one day starting at 10 a.m. Central, ending at 2:30 Central, July 24th.
Awesome.
Should be a fun day. Should have a lot of fun. We'll be down there in San Antonio on the sun, getting cremated with Harry and the rest of the crew.
Yeah, it's going to be warm.
It will be very warm. Yes. And then Ross, you had something else you wanted to add to, my man?
Yeah, I was going to say I had a thought. I'm about to have a pretty bougie week here of drinking burgundies and champagne, but it got me thinking. With the beer industry the way it is, that we forget sometimes how blessed we are that we have access to some of the best beer in the world in the U.S. and the best examples of the styles. And the other thing, it's affordable to drink the world's best. In other words, you can get for $8 a pint Heady Topper or Fort George or Freem, or Bell's. It's a very wonderful position to be in, to be able to drink the best product in the entire world for a reasonable price. And I think that, me personally, I tend to drink a good amount of beer simply because it's so, the value to quality the ratio is so good that whereas, I don't drink a lot of the champagne or the Pinot, but I love them. But it's just to get to a price or to get to a quality level that you're drinking pretty close to the world's best, you can't sustain that. It's just too expensive. Whereas in the beer world, for a reasonable price, we can drink some of the world's best, and especially in the United States. So, as bad as things are in the beer industry, I think it's good to remember that we have such an advantage to what we have in our portfolios relative to the other alcohol categories.
There's still a ton of value. It's still a ton of fun. I know people are frustrated with the way the business is performing right now, or the way that the industry is performing as a whole. Like, we could do anything in the world, and we've got more choices than what people think they do. And I'd rather be here working in the industry, having fun and doing what I love than doing anything else right now, because it's a fun, challenging time. With challenge comes opportunities, and people who are willing to put their head down and really focus on pennies and nickels and dimes. Some of these fringe ideas around pay transparency and some of the other stuff that we're talking about can really move the needle for you. And we don't give yourselves enough credit around the opportunities that you've got, for sure. So love it. Good closeout.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you all love what we're doing, please like and subscribe, share with a friend. If you have any questions, comments, things you want to send in, reach out to us directly at via info@vxptech.com. That's info@vxptech.com. We will be back again next week. I'm excited about our topic for next week. It'll be a guest show, which will be fun with a motley crew. It's going to be one of our larger, more to be our largest number of folks I think we've had on the podcast at one time. So it should be a fun time, and we'll see how we can organize everybody as well. So until next week, boys, and everybody out there in listener land, cheers.
Cheers.